Hey, what's up, guys? Chad Hermansen here with Mental Edge Training Coach. Today, I'm going to be talking with Casey Harvie. Casey is a cross-checker for the Texas Rangers. He lives up in the Seattle area, and he covers the whole West Coast for the Texas Rangers. So we're going to dive into his story, how he got into scouting, what does a cross-checker actually do, and he also has a great information for you as a young high school kid, even just a human being in general. He unfortunately lost his wife to melanoma, to cancer, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so he's going to talk about that story as well and how important it is to make sure you take care of yourself with sunscreen and that you're doing the proper things to take care of your body, your mind, and your health. But hopefully you enjoy this episode with Casey Harvie. Hey, what's up, Casey? How's it going, man?
What's going on? How are you?
We're doing good. I'm doing good out here in Las Vegas. We just got done with the 2020 draft. I watched it from my couch as well as you did at home. How did your draft go for you this year?
I think it went, you know what? It went great. It was obviously a lot different than, me and you, what we're used to doing. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think we had some really good, young high school guys we took on day two, and we got a really good hitter in the first round, and everyone really worked great together as a group. And it was strange being on Zoom for 3 to 5 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And then having like homework sent to you, like a little Excel spreadsheet, like, hey, finish this. Right. So other than that, man, I'm glad, it's Groundhog's Day, so to speak.
There you go. So Casey's up in Seattle, lives in Seattle. He is a cross-checker for the Texas Rangers. So for those that don't know a lot about scouting, there's kind of, you could say, levels, right? We have the area scout, the cross-checker, national cross-checker, and then up to the scouting director. So that's kind of how the hierarchy goes. So tell us, how did you actually get into scouting?
Wow. Long story. I'll make it a short story, a long story, short story. How about that for a second?
We love long stories too.
So I got a lefty. My youngest brother was a left-handed pitcher that was on the area code team. His name's Austin Harvie. And he was like 88 to 92, good curveball, really loose arm, not probably like a large frame, 6'1", kind of. So anyways, I met a scout through that named Sean Whalen, he was with the Indians at the time. I had just gotten out of college, was trying to get into baseball. And so I started as literally a bird dog with him. And I would, just run around all over the place. And, I was spending all my own money to go everywhere. So, I remember looking at my credit card bill and how much gas I was spending. Right. And I would go see anything and everything. Like if he told me to go somewhere, and if he didn't, then I was going to go watch something else. And I just kind of got a reputation as a hard worker. Then moved on to the Colorado Rockies as a paid part-time scout for Gary Wilson.
Yeah.
Who's now the West Coast scout for or cross-checker for the Royals. And they paid me basically to do the state of Washington. So he was coming from Northern California at the time as the area scout, and I helped him. And then from there, a guy by the name of Bo Hughes, who worked for the Los Angeles Angels, he was the West Coast cross-checker. Him and Eddie Bain interviewed me for the basically to be the Northwest area scout for the Angels. So I did that for 6-7 years, and then I've been over here with the Texas Rangers for, God, unbelievable. This is my 10th year cross-checking. No wonder I'm gray. This is why I cut my hair short.
Yeah, man, the hair is looking amazing right now. That's good stuff.
It's out of control. Way too much gel.
So you started your career with the Angels, and so a lot of families and parents here oh, that guy's a scout. You mentioned a bird dog or an associate. Tell us a little bit more about that, because you're saying that you're helping this team, you're helping the Angels, or you're helping whoever, but you're spending your own money. Now, why do you have to spend your own money? Explain that for us.
Great question. So if you're a bird dog or an associate scout that usually is with an area scout. So for example, if you work the Four Corner area, you would maybe have a bird dog in Salt Lake City, for example, that keeps an eye. They get paid nothing. Yeah. If by chance they find someone unique, then you would get almost a little stipend. I think it's $2,000 per the contracts at the time. they give you a piece of paper as a contract, but basically it's nothing, at the end of the day, and they don't give you any expenses or any salary. So really you're driving around. It's almost like an internship.
Yeah.
That's the way I would kind of look at it. And if you do, well, then, that's the whole point, is it helps you network and kind of learn on the job at the same time. And maybe you find something, I think my first year as a bird dog with the Cleveland Indians, I found a kid at like a Division III school that they drafted in like the 30, it was in the late 30s, 40s kind of round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what you do. And then you hope that leads to something else.
Yeah, I've had a couple bird dogs associates, and they, after a little while, they realized too that, oh yeah, I'm not getting paid to do this. So it's obviously you have to have a love for it, a passion for it, be willing to spend your own money. A lot of times I have a gentleman he's somewhat retired, an older gentleman, just loves baseball. So he wants to go around and, hey, I saw a guy here, like, make sure you come check out this guy. And then obviously you got to get some, we'll go get some velo on him if he's a pitcher, and he may like him, and he's touching 90 or something like that, but he's really more 84, 85. And then you can kind of squash that right away and be like, okay, well, that's not what we're looking for right now. It sounds like he can project. He's probably got to go to school, go to junior college. He needs more time, right? So It's interesting about that. So what are, as you were an area scout with the Angels, what was your area? Was it all of Northwest? Tell us that.
Yeah, I was British Columbia, Alberta, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming.
Okay.
And then I had Alaska, but Alaska didn't, aside from Alaska Collegiate League, really wasn't, you'd have maybe a name every 5 or so years that you would check out. Nothing like substantial. So tough area because the weather's the weather's hard.
Yeah.
You try to get, your boss up to come cross-check a kid, and it's like, oh, I got rained out again. I got rained out again, And so now they got more turf in the Northwest because they realize they can't play unless they have that. And a lot of the times when they're playing on that turf, those games are canceled in other locations.
Yeah.
Southern California, they cancel for a week. So.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, being in the Four Corners area in Vegas, Arizona, the desert, essentially, I know probably if you talk to those coaches up in the Northwest, it's very difficult to get those kids to come up there. Right. And so like a Washington State, a Seattle, teams like that. But then you have Oregon, then you have Oregon State, those are the big schools out there. But so tell us about now you've been in a Crosschecker, you said, for 10 years. What is a day in the life of Casey Harvie as a Crosschecker during the season?
In a normal season, like before, let's just say the coronavirus hit, I would wake up at, let's say I got a 7:30 flight. I'd wake up at like 5:30, shower, grab my stuff, go out the door, drive either to Seattle or Everett, Washington. I'm kind of fortunate. I got a new airport next to me. It's about 15 minutes away.
Oh, nice.
Depending upon where I'm having to go, I race down there. If it's Seattle, it's really hard because that's like, I got to basically beat all the traffic until it's, before it builds up, and park, go through security, get on a plane, land, get my rental car, and then either hope that I can check in early to my hotel or go straight to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, some everywhere in between, I got to eat and then maybe go to another game. Or sometimes like I literally fly somewhere, watch a game, go back to the airport, return my rental car, and then fly somewhere else. So it's taxing, just the logistics of everything, everything you have to do to get from point A to point B. I've had a couple times I've taken like 3 flights in a day, which is, I'm trying to not ever do that again. Like Arizona, game in early morning, game in Arizona. And then I flew to Nevada. Then I flew to, I want to say Orange County, and I saw 3 games and 3 different guys, which is like ridiculous. Like,
yeah. Was that when you were a first year Crosschecker or something? Like,
trying
to really grind it out, right?
Then you're so tired you don't remember what you saw.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, just it's dangerous too because
you're holding up the gun. You're like, it's like run on fumes. So so the travel's insane, right? I mean, you can be on a plane almost every day, almost every other day. Obviously you have to strategize. Now, how do you strategize going to see which player?
That's a good question. Like usually at the beginning of the season, depending upon who's playing, I will like target like my top guys first. So we have the summer where we have follows either from the Cape Cod League, Collegiate League, any collegiate league. It could be the Northwoods League. It could be like these showcases. In a lot of, the high school stuff in the northern states, it doesn't start, until, later. So a majority of the stuff I'm probably doing early in the season is I'm targeting key names and probably guys that we got rated higher. And then I'll go see them. Southern California is ridiculous. They play high school year round. So
Yeah.
if you want to go see, a tournament and right before Christmas, you can see it in Palm Springs, or in January, they got fall ball. So I work on priority. And then the hard part is like, okay, when do they play? Where do they play?
Yeah.
And then what's the weather? Because everything, I remember I used to buy my flights in advance. I would have an entire week of like everything lined up, and then the weather would hit and I'd have to cancel everything,
Yeah.
change fees and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. So a lot of it is last minute. There's times like I'll fly somewhere and not know if a certain kid's going to pitch or not due to weather or maybe a coaching decision.
Yeah.
And I literally don't have a flight bought yet. And then I buy the flight and then boom, I'm taking off. So it's a lot of like instantaneous decisions based upon weather and schedule and stuff. And then you look for runs. Like that's the biggest thing. Like this is a really good run right here. Or like, you really want to stay in one area, whether let's say my region is Northern California, I want to be down there in that Bay Area. But if there's only like one game going on that's worthwhile, I'm bouncing. I'm going back to the airport and I'm going to go somewhere else.
Right. So a run is basically you're saying I'm flying to a certain area. I'm flying to California. I'm looking at my priority guys. I got this righty throwing today, this lefty's throwing tonight, and then I can go see the shortstop tomorrow. I can go see that first baseman or catcher the next day. So you're talking a run is 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a row in the same general area.
Correct. And even if it can be split up, like, some of it could be in Southern California, and then maybe I got to jump on a plane in San Diego and fly to Phoenix and go see stuff there. But that's what you're trying to do. Like, unfortunately, not all the time does it line up. And you love it when it lines up in the same region because you can just sit in the car, and drive all over the place. But when you're a cross-checker, like, it's like, okay, I got to, oh, man, there's only one thing really going on. I don't want to see that guy.
Yeah.
I got 3 guys over here playing in the same, it could be the same game. So that's the best. Actually, hardest part is just the scheduling of it. And then, hopefully you don't get, like a flight delay or anything like that. I've had that where like I'm literally on a plane and then they pull back into the airport and I'm like, okay, well that game's canceled. And then I literally run across the next terminal and then I hop on another plane and I'm off and running somewhere else. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And and I guess I'll point out the difference. So now with me as an area scout, I cover my area. It's the 4 corners. So I have Vegas, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, mainly in Arizona and Phoenix most of the time. And I would say there's only me and Jeff Scholzen that lives outside of Phoenix that covers our area. Everybody else is in Phoenix. There's a ton of cross-checkers. The scouting community, there's a ton in Phoenix, or it seems like California, right? That's probably fair to say, right?
Yep.
You're in Seattle and kind of spread out. But that's the cool thing about the job is all you got to do is hop on a plane, and a team is willing to pay for that for you to do your job and live in your hometown. So that's pretty cool. So you're cross-checking. Explain to us, what is a national cross-checker?
Okay, they basically, like for example, I'm responsible for basically managing my 5 area scouts and just communicating and working together on like who we're seeing and who we're not. And that's just my region, the West Coast. All right, a national cross-checker is someone that goes all over. They go all over the entire United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico, and they go see the best or the highest graded players by the area scout and the West Coast supervisors. So it's a brutal job. Like, it's really hard. Sometimes they're showering in, airports. I mean, I know Kip, there's been times I'm like, where are you? He goes, oh, I just got done, getting, he literally didn't go to bed. Like, he's sleeping on the plane.
Right.
It's incredibly hard. Like, you want to do, ideally you'd like to stay in a region and then go to a next region, but that isn't how it works. Like, these guys could be in Virginia watching a pitcher, and then they'll fly all the way to, Texas and watch someone else play. So it's exhausting job. And their job is really to help organize, this guy over that guy over that guy over that guy on the national board. And then listen, they got to listen, a good national guy, like, listens to his regional guy, really communicates well with the area guys, and then kind of asks questions, and we all try to basically together fill in the, the pieces. So,
yeah. So they're looking at, whereas me as an area scout, I'm probably going to write anywhere from, and depends on how low I want to get on, there's non-prospects, there's org players. I probably write about 70 to 80 reports per year, to prepare for the draft. And I'll be frank with you, I probably only really like that I would really like to draft maybe 15 to 20 of them. And some of them are required to write, reports on. Some of them we know are just not prospects, but we also know that these prospects that we do draft, they have to play with somebody, right? We have to fill these teams out. It's obviously way different this year with the 5 rounds and the free agent draft going on. So I think everyone's just trying to get a feel for what are we going to do, right? What's the ultimate goal for you as a scout? Because I know some guys just love being an area scout. Some just would love to be a cross-checker. They really like that job. What would you say that is for you?
That's a great question. When I first got into this, like, I was just happy being an area supervisor and driving around and, trying to find big leaguers and beat other, scouts and stuff. And I actually really like what I do. Even though, I live here up north of Seattle, it's actually not that hard for me to, get on a flight, and it's 2.5 hours, I think my worst location to get to is El Paso, Texas, of my territory.
Yeah.
That one's a bummer, because you're like, where's the nonstops? There isn't no nonstops.
You're trying to go to Las Cruces, right? And go to El Paso to get there, or into Texas, keep going further into Texas, right?
Right. So, I had obviously we talked about, what happened in my life with my wife passing away from cancer 2.5 years ago, and my son was only 2 years old. And, that was an eye opener for me, because I think initially, like, I had an opportunity to go with another organization in a larger kind of potential pro director role. And then all that came, that didn't work out. And then she got sick, and it kind of gave me more perspective. Like, as much as I would love to do it, I think at the end of the day, like, I'm at peace with the fact that there's bigger things in life than just pure career. I mean, the last thing I probably want to do is, watch everyone else's kids but my own play baseball, or let's say it's football, or let's say it's guitar, or whatever he's going to do. So that life experience, of dealing with my wife passing and seeing, that 22-month process and how difficult it was, it really opened up my eyes to, like, it's not that don't want to, like, move up. It's just that if I had to, I probably would be more, I guess, require, like, that I am home about similar to what I am as a cross-checker, because I mean, we're only on this planet for so long. We're, like, basically all of us are just a moment in time. That's what we are. And so that opened my eyes to, like, I still want to be great in my occupation. Like, I want to be considered one of the best in the region and in the country, but I don't want to, like, sacrifice, like, not seeing my son grow up. That's absolutely, like, paramount to me. And if you'd asked me that 4 years ago, that probably wouldn't be the case. But being a new dad, I mean, that changed everything. So
yeah. So you have a little boy named Hudson. He's 4 now. So tell us about Hudson.
Hudson's interesting. I'm basically a single parent. So when my wife passed, I don't think any man in the world thinks about, like, I got to be mom and dad, right? Like I have to cook. I got to do no one's doing the laundry like it's over there. So Hudson is, uh, he's almost 5, very animated, very talkative. He's almost 3/4 of the height of his dad, which is concerning, very concerning. We've gone through probably 12 pairs of shoes in the last month and a half.
Oh yeah.
Like just everything, nothing fits. You know, he's got pajamas on right now that definitely he can walk through puddles, no problem, because they're too short.
Right.
And so he's growing right now. He's in almost a size 2 shoe, which is insane for a kid that's not even 5. Very intelligent. Addicted to Pac-Man. I don't know if that's a good thing. So I'm hoping to get. He was in preschool before all the COVID stuff. Before all the COVID stuff hit, and as he's talking in the background right now, I think he wants to get back to preschool. And you know, it's kind of like, when do I do it? Or you know, how long do you wait until you go back? And just,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Hopefully we get back to normal schooling. You know, schooling for us here in Nevada is going to start like in the middle of August, apparently.
Oh wow.
Moved up even like a week or two prior. It's usually kind of the last week of August. So now we're talking even earlier. And, you know, since we've had the break with the COVID, kids have been home already, right? 2-3 months now. And now we've gone straight into summer. And you mentioned Pac-Man, the video games. And it's interesting as a parent, you're like, like my son is not going to play video games 4 or 5, 6 hours a day. And then as time goes on, you're like, okay, yeah, go ahead, whatever. Like they're like, there's only so much I can do.
I know. I mean, like last night I was sitting there and I found myself like, I'm 43 years old. I've just played Pac-Man for like 45 minutes. What's wrong with me?
And you're like, and that was amazing, right?
Yeah. We do, like, you know, you got to get creative. Like in this situation, there comes a point in time where, you know, I pulled him a month early because we were the hub of all this COVID stuff here in Lake Stevens, Washington, where I live. The first patient who had COVID was at Providence Medical Center, of all the places.
Mm.
It's not like I live like in downtown Seattle. I'm probably 35, 40 minutes north. You know, I'm closer to Canada probably than I am Tacoma, Washington.
Okay.
And the first guy of all, unbelievable, like was 8 miles from my house at a Providence Hospital, the first COVID case. So this was kind of where everything really blew up first. And I pulled him about a month early out of preschool, and he's, you know, it's kind of come to a point now where it's like, all right, you know, he wants to be social. He wants to be around, you know, friends. He wants to learn, engage. So how do we do that now? And Khan Academy for kids is kind of a big deal we do on iPad, and man, I'm doing the best I can. And then I got the draft going on, you know, at the same time. It's been a juggling act.
I bet. So when you actually leave home, do you have some family members or friends that watch Hudson?
That's a great question. Excellent. Very good question. So normally what his rhythm has been, and it's the poor kid. I mean, he's almost been like a scout, like where you're like here, there. And when Chrissy passed away, her mother basically said like, look, I'll watch him. And I said, okay, well, I'll definitely, I got to give you something. I mean, obviously you got to buy food and all that stuff. So she watches him a majority of the time, along with my family and then my late wife's best friends. And so it's kind of been a juggling act. The poor kid's been moving around all over the place. And now he's got school. So that's adding a whole new dynamic, you know. Normally he was going to preschool like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then I would come home out of nowhere. Who knows where I'm coming from? It could be Albuquerque or Salt Lake City or whatever. And then I land, and then I have to go pick him up. And then he's with me a couple days. And then I'm back out the door. So he's got kind of a, you know, this has been actually kind of cool being quarantined. Not in the sense of like it's been fun, but I'm abnormally home for this time of, you know, the year. And it's been just, I mean, we've really connected. And that's been the kind of hard part, you know, is like when I go back to work, you know, and I'm all over the place. Like I think it's going to be harder for me than him, you know, because he'll go back to school. But he has had a very, it hasn't been unhealthy. It's just a lot of bouncing around with different people, you know, that's been my challenge, you know. And when now that I've been home so much, like he don't like bouncing around. He likes that stability and consistency. So it's been really challenging, but you know what? He's happy. We don't have any, issues emotionally or socially. He's a good kid, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm kind of
Yeah.
proud about the most.
No doubt. So if you don't mind, tell us, I mean, obviously you had something tragic happen in your life, and we've talked a few weeks back, I talked with Jeff Scholzen, our good buddy.
Yes.
He lost his wife as well. Whatever you're willing to get into, tell us about your wife and what happened there.
Yeah, this will be good for kids to hear, and I think parents too as well, because I think there's a bigger message. And anyways, my wife, she passed away from stage 4 melanoma. So melanoma is the most aggressive and basically fatal skin cancer you can get, and it usually occurs from excessive sun exposure. So a lack of sunscreen, a lack of clothing that is SPF. It blocks SPFs and all the bad rays from the sun. She was more blonde-haired, blue-eyed, fair-skinned.
Okay.
And so I'd like to share with like families is, if you have, everyone can get skin cancer, but if you're lighter skinned, blue-eyed, red hair, maybe you just have like a whiter pigment, you are 10 times more susceptible than someone else that has a darker complexion, or that's one thing we learned. So she got I think she was 25 years old when she first had a mole get melanoma. And when that happens, and it's at basically inside of the skin layers, they do surgery. And based upon how big the mole is, they have kind of a formula where they say, we're going to go this wide and cut this wide, and then they cut it out. And usually more times than not, you're okay. Well, my wife's came back a second time, and she had to have a really, really big cut on her back, basically from her shoulder to her, her side. And we were hopeful that was the end of it. But right around about the time my brother was getting married, she was having a hard time breathing, and we went and got a biopsy, and they found something in her lung, and there was basically melanoma had metastasized. And what that means is it's basically gone from the skin level to now it's really hard to stop it, because it spreads like wildfire. So we moved to Houston, Texas, with the help of the Texas Rangers, our owners, our general manager, and basically the best melanoma doctor in the world there. Her name is Dr. Wen Jin Hu. She's from Taiwan. She's a genius. Older lady, great personality. But we lived there for like 7 months.
Okay.
And that was, like a total shock. My son wasn't even 2 years old at the time. We had to basically move into an apartment that was probably about a mile away from the hospital. MD Anderson Cancer Center is like the biggest cancer hospital in the United States.
Okay.
And a lot of the medications that you do that are being used on cancer patients, all that clinical trials, that happens there, a lot of them. So the medication that she was using, our doctor actually was the one that got it, was doing all the testing for the FDA before they approved it. So we were dealing with the best of the best. And I think at the time when we went down there, she had like 300 lesions from her brain all the way through the center of her body. And so obviously it wasn't good.
Wow.
And then we got on medication down there, and like we got instant results. It was unbelievable. It was a total roller coaster, but we almost beat it. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is that we just don't have the science yet to understand why these medicines work really good and then they stop working.
Yeah.
And she passed away about 2.5 years ago. So I think one of the things, like, through that process that I definitely want to share with people is like, you gotta wear sunscreen, whatever sunscreen you think you need. Or if it's like you don't like how it feels in your face, or you don't like how it feels on your arms or whatever, then get SPF clothing and a hat. I don't like looking like a hiker all the time, but like that kind of opened my eyes up to, some things. Here we are, scouts, right? We're in the sun all the time,
all day,
and I wasn't protecting myself like I should have, even being a Crosschecker. So it's all about protection. Like whether it's you wear clothing that's SPF, a high SPF level of it, or sunscreen, or both. And so that's a huge deal, especially for little kids. who are running around outside and whatnot. But that it's a real thing. It's actually a lot more common melanoma now than it has been ever before, because our ozone layer is definitely thinner, gone in some locations. And so that protection is extremely important for people.
Yeah, I've noticed when we're out scouting, like you said, sometimes we're at 2 or 3 games a day, which it leads up to hours out in the sun. I noticed you've led the charge in a way of, I got a bald head, right? So I wear a big, if I know I'm going to be in the sun, I wear a big hat. I put sunscreen all over my head. You wear the sleeves a lot, right?
Yep.
You see sleeves a lot. Columbia shirts that have those kind of, so that's those type of things you see scouts wear because we are in the sun so long. It was weird. About a couple years ago, my wife gave me a hug and she felt the back of my neck and she's like, "What the heck is that?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? But she calls it a chicken Joe. And I think I want to say it's called a melanoma, or no, lipoma. Excuse me.
Lipoma. Yeah, you don't want melanoma. Yeah.
No, excuse me, lipoma. But it's some fatty tissue that is on the back of my neck. And I went and got that scraped out, taken out. And that was about probably 2.5, 3 years ago, roughly. And it's starting to grow back again, and it's like right on my spine, so I'm like, wow, this is kind of scary, and she just, little slice of the neck, she scrapes it out and pulls it out, and it, not to gross people out, but it was like chicken fat. That's what it looked like.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's probably not good.
Right.
So, but yeah, when like that, unfortunately, sometimes it takes something like that to like, okay, I better crack down and maybe stay out of the sun like I should, things like that. But obviously this was the worst case scenario, and it sucks you've had to go through that. And but it's, I'm grateful that you have a story and a lesson to teach kids, because kids, especially the high school area, that age, they're invincible, right? It's
right.
Nothing's wrong ever happen to them. So just taking little precautions, to take care of yourself, and wear those hats if you need to.
Yeah, and go to the dermatologist as much as you don't. I never went to a dermatologist. Like, are you kidding me?
Right.
And it's not always genetic. Like, it's like some people are obviously more genetically susceptible than others, but like I never went to a dermatologist. And I remember after that I went, and she's like, "We're going to take that one." I go, "You're taking what?" And she goes, "Yeah, take your shirt off. We're going to cut that out right now."
Like as a mole, like get a mole?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. So if it's not a perfect circle, like it has, maybe sometimes it looks like Pac-Man. We've been talking about Pac-Man, right? That's abnormal. Or if it hurts, or if it's like you push on it, and if it hurts, you got to go to the dermatologist ASAP. You call them and tell them like, "Hey, something's wrong," or if it's turning colors, those are all red flags. That's not normal.
Yeah.
So kids, like if you have a mole, like, and you're like, that's not right. It's just,
don't ignore it.
Every year, you should go every year to the dermatologist. So, and I'm telling you, especially if you're in, it really doesn't matter what area you're in. I mean, we're in the Northwest, and my wife got melanoma.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of sunshine like Southern California and Las Vegas, right? So that tells you like, it just doesn't, it doesn't matter, because you can have a cloudy day and you can get burnt, and you only get, I think our doctor said, because of the new, just the rays are so hard on the human body now, you basically can only get burnt 5 times now because of the lack of the ozone, like burn, like where you like blister.
Okay.
And then that starts to clock. That's what he told us. 5 is not a lot.
Right.
Especially if you're in a nice area where there's beautiful beaches and you want to go hang out on the beach or surf or, or be a scout, right?
Yeah.
We're out there all day. So that, I couldn't believe that. And that was probably she told us that 3 years ago. So I was like, wow, like 5 times in a lifetime, easily that can happen when you're younger.
Yeah.
Alone.
Well,
So
I think
it's serious, so.
Yeah, it seems like the kids, they want to, I just think I might like the girls, they we make them put sunscreen on. They go swimming probably at least every other day here in Vegas in the summer. It's like, get on your feet, get everywhere, right? And
Right.
sometimes they're reluctant, but they've gotten to the point now, like, okay, we know we need to do this, but their minds are thinking, oh, but if I put sunscreen on, then I won't get a tan,
Right.
right? I won't get this beautiful bronze. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna still get a tan, like you'll be fine, right? But it's like,
Right.
how about not getting the skin cancer? We want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So it's interesting how their minds think at that young age.
No doubt. I thought the same way. I mean, like, there's a lot of, we meet a lot of special high school kids. Some of them, I look at them and I'm like, I was so much dumber than you in high school. Like, I can't believe how mature you are. Like, I think I was 20 when I started acting like it's amazing, or maybe 25, who knows?
Right.
But like, yeah, you just feel like you're indestructible when you're young, and that's not true. Because maybe what you did, maybe what my wife, did for, she wanted to look good. She wanted to go to the tanning beds and all that stuff, or like sit out by the river and get tan, right, and look good. Those are all things that impacted what happened to her. And you never think about that, but you really got to be aware of it. And so
Yeah,
I think it's like a great platform to share that.
no doubt. Yeah, and hopefully those kids, you take that to heart. You just put sunscreen on every day before you go out. And mom and dad are going to bug you about it, but they obviously love you more than anybody, so they want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and those types of things. So back to on the scouting side of things, and I'll let you kind of wrap this up here. But what do you look for in a player when you go see a player? Because you're going to already as an area scout. Yeah, we're kind of in a way discovering players, but we're also going to look at specific players. But if you're not that specific player, because you're going to watch a specific list, how do you go about your process of, man, that's a good player? Is there certain ways you go about that?
I think the biggest thing I learned was like prospects come in all shapes and sizes. Ideally we want to see the guy that's really tall and, big, strong, and fast, right?
Right.
And the reality is there's a lot of really good smaller players. I mean, it's hard to argue that Altuve is, he's not a good player. He's a really good player and he's little. Right. So for me, it's some of the things like, I'm looking at instincts. I'm looking at timing, like, with hitters, swing decisions that they make, bat speed, particular. I'm looking at where their hands are, if their hands are loading, the extension through the ball. How long can they keep the barrel in the zone in the center of the plate to where they can use the whole field, right?
Yep.
I'm looking for, and I also want projection. Like if there's different, like I said, everyone comes in different shapes and sizes. So if you're not as projectable, meaning like you're more of a mature high school kid or a college kid, then I need a lot of tool set right now.
Right.
Like you better have, a really good bat to ball skills, very good recognition, and just really overall quality of bats. And then it really depends on where you play. Ideally, like I think a lot of us want to go after shortstops, center fielders, and catchers and starting pitchers. And if you're a big shortstop that maybe is not as fast, you move him to third base, right? Or if you're the shortstop that's got really good hands and whatnot, but got a little bit short on arm strength, we move you to second.
Yep.
So for me, it's like, is this going to be an impact player? That's a question I ask. Is he projectable? And then how many tools does he have? At the end of the day. So I'm always looking for 5-tool players. So that means you can hit, you got ball impact, you're a fielder, and you can run at least average and have an average arm. Ideally, what I'm looking for though is all of those tools to be plus. That's just not the case. Those guys are so hard to find.
Yeah.
So
those are the guys that go in the top 10 picks.
Precisely.
Position player wise. Yeah.
Right. So that's the fun part of scouting is like all these different profiles. Like, we took a guy in the 5th round that like, he's a 30 runner. You watch him throw, it's like a 45 arm. He's got really, really good hands. And then when he gets up to the plate, it's like whack, it's like, you wouldn't look at him if you only saw him running around the field, you'd be like, oh, he's okay. Yeah. And then you get him in, in the batter's box and he gets in the ground so well and just hammers balls all over the place. And it's like, okay, that guy's interesting, like, where you got other guys that maybe are like fast, really fast. They don't have a lot of power, but they can really impact your pitching staff on defense and center field and save some runs. That's the beauty of this game, is there's totally different profiles all over the place. So pitching wise, I'm looking for guys that can pitch and throw strikes and have multiple pitches and do it easy and coordinated. We really have a stringent process on how we grade like some of these. It's really hard to get drafted by the Texas Rangers these days with pitching, because we're so critical of the deliveries, the timing and the deliveries, how your foot lands. And I'm not saying things can't change, because I've seen some really bad deliveries. I'd take Chris Sale. I don't know about you, but I would definitely take Chris Sale, right? I think I'd take Max Scherzer, right?
Yes.
So, there's some, like, I guess, characteristics that I really target on, with delivery, arm action, and like how easy things work. And then there's always these exceptional guys, and you go, wow, this is really done different, but it works. For some reason, they can't see this guy at all. So there's so many characteristics on like what I'm looking at that we could go on forever on that kind of stuff.
So what you're telling me is, if you saw me in high school with a beard and a receding hairline already at 17, 18, like, I better have now tools.
Yes. like plus, Tyler O'Neill comes to mind. He was a Canadian guy. I liked, maybe my second or third year here. He's from British Columbia, and he looked like John Rambo, except bigger. And he kind of walked around and talked like this. And then I'm like, oh man, there's no projection to this guy. And then he got in the batter's box, and it was like, whoa, like, oh my goodness, that's well above average bat speed.
Yeah.
Got really good hands in his swing, really good balance. And he's got well above average raw power, and he's doing it against minor leaguers.
Mm-hmm. That's
where I go, all right, I don't like a left field profile. However, this guy's like manhandling, 22, 24-year-old minor leaguers, and he's 17. Like, that's where my thought process goes. I think, some of the things that we always want, like a polished guy, like the more polished, the more now stuff you get now, it's easier to draft those guys, right? Maybe they don't have as much top end, but you're like, okay, this guy's definitely going to do well right out of the box. Mm-hmm. So I think the one thing in scouting we've gotten away from is like projection with, all this TrackMan data and, Rapsodo and all the technology that we have now. Guys get better.
They do.
So I think as an industry, we've kind of lost our creativity a little bit. And I know I did for a while. I would say there was like 2-3 years where I just kind of forgot about, oh, that's right, Jordan Balazovic was 86-90 with a 40 breaking ball and like a 50 change, and now you can't trade for him. He's 93-97. What was his TrackMan in high school?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very good.
Right.
So we've lost a little bit of that creativity, and I think we got to get back to that. And that's the hard part, is because we've learned to really measure everything, much better than the human eye with this technology. But guys still get better. That guy that throws 86-90, if you have some of the other, it's tall, he's skinny, he doesn't have a throwing program, he's never done weighted balls, right? Those are good profiles. And then if he does it easy and you're like, okay, dad's 230 pounds. Yeah. You start putting, the pieces together, those guys are still valuable. You don't have to throw 95 to be, maybe you're not going to get the money like some of these other dudes get, but you might be better in the long run.
Yeah.
And our industry's kind of gotten away from that. And I'm kind of happy to see that we're trying to take advantage of that kind of underbelly right now. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because, every organization is different, and I guess we won't dive into complete philosophy of each organization, because I think that philosophy also comes from whoever is running your team, right, at that particular time. So you kind of have to go with the flow of, okay, well, who do we like? What's our type of player? And so I would say you scout that way, but it kind of ends up being that way, and that's who you end up picking in the draft and that type of thing. But yeah, I totally agree with, I can give an example of my son who is kind of a late bloomer, and went and did like a PBR event, and did, tall, lanky kid, right? He's kind of just starting to get stronger, and he had a certain number of exit velo. Just he did it off the tee, right? And that's
Hmm.
how they were measuring it. And then you fast forward just like 6 months, and it's like 10 miles an hour faster, right? So it's like
Right.
we have to make sure we understand that these kids, if that is a measurement, that these kids get better in a hurry because they're starting to get stronger. They haven't lifted weights yet, or they don't have a strength program, and you're like, and that's why you see kids toward the draft, they start going up, right? They're like, oh, this guy, these numbers are starting to match up with what we're looking for, but he may have not been a prospect. That some of these kids that were drafted out of the top 500, right? There's probably a whole list of guys that you could have really taken and said, oh yeah, he wasn't a top 200 guy coming into his senior year, but dude, look what he's accomplished in just 6 months. So I agree with that. The creativity of projecting on players. Now it might still be a huge risk, right?
Hmm.
They kind of all are in a way out of high school.
That is correct.
Um, but it's, man, you gotta look at athleticism, adjustments, pitch recognition, like you said. But that's the whole process, and that's what's fun about being a scout is you try to use that creativity, and that's can be evident in the way you put your follows, right? The way you put your
Mhm.
ref lists, all those things. So it's fun. That's what's fun about the job.
I agree. Like the projection guys, I'll say the one thing that these kids need to know, like if they're watching this, is you're projectable, right? You have like, let's say you're tall, you're skinny, you're not physical, you're going to get stronger, right? The ones that are the most projectable though have that, and then one huge feature, and that is great makeup, great work ethic, great determination. They're very driven and resilient, and that is the guy you got to get. And
Yep.
how you find that out? How do you find that out as a scout? Lot of phone calls, right? A lot of conversations, interviews. We spend all year round, studying your family and you, and how do you react in failure, and how do you how are you gonna? That's the guy I want.
Right.
Is the guy that has all those physical attributes, but then we got to nail the makeup, because if you're average makeup, you're not going to be very projectable, because you probably won't work hard. You probably won't go above and beyond the call of duty. And
Yeah.
so we're looking for a well above average makeup combined with all that stuff. And now you've got something. That he's dangerous. That's the dangerous guy.
Yeah.
Because if you get a whole team of those kind of makeup guys that are also talented, you're in trouble facing that team. So
Yeah.
those are huge deals.
Yeah. I think makeup closes a lot of gaps,
Hmm.
right? On what we're trying to look for, because if you ever played the game at a high school, college, or pro level, if you don't have the fire and the passion for the game to go out and do it every single day, and
Right.
because I played with players that you could just tell they didn't show up that day, and then they
Right.
didn't show up the next day, and then the next day, and some of those guys, the manager could see right through that too, and they're gone, right? Because
Right.
they numbers start to decline. This guy's not working or doing this. There's obviously different circumstances and situations, but man, the makeup is enormous.
And that goes for any job. It could be outside of baseball. Like at the end of the day, when you got that guy that's not driven, man, and if I'm a owner of a company, I'm getting rid of you.
Yeah,
Like I want a bunch of those dudes, and that's what some of the great owners of businesses around the world, they're not only talented, but they're looking for people that are driven and resilient. So
no doubt, no doubt. Well, Casey, man, this has been awesome. I've been wanting to get you on board here for the last few weeks. I've been down for the count myself the last week.
poor
Um,
guy. I'm sorry.
but we had the we had the draft, so I was trying to get Casey on here earlier, and he's like, "Dude, I got 3-4 hour Zoom calls every day." I'm like, "Yeah, let's do an interview for an hour. That sounds fantastic."
Would
So
have been a zombie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So no, this has been great. A lot of great information. Obviously, we're going to see you on the scout trail soon. Hopefully, we get back to work here and things get going. But obviously, we wish you nothing but the best with you and Hudson. And things are going to keep working out for you. And we're going to see you on the scouting trail, man.
All right, man. Thank you so much. God bless everybody, and thank you for your time.
All right, brother. Take care of yourself. We'll talk to
All
you
right.
soon.
See
Okay.
you.
We'll see you.
Thank you.
Bye.